and welcome back to Shoogly Shed Motors. A little bit different today. I'm going to try something I've not done before, which is a real-time lathe work video. So, I think I mentioned in the end of the last episode about the gear shifter, foot clutch and gear shifter, the jockey shift that we made, that I wanted to make a shifting knob for the top of the gear stick. And I thought it would be quite cool to do it as a sort of, I'm not going to say one take video because I can't promise there won't be some cuts. I don't know if my camera battery will last that long, for instance, but what I'm going to try and do is turn this chunk of aluminium bar stock, 1.5 inch, into a gear knob for the end of the gear stick. I'll need to cut a thread onto the gear stick and a corresponding thread into this for it to screw on. And I think I'm probably just going to freestyle it. I haven't really got a design in mind. I did look up some tractor gear stick, gear knob shifters and things, vintage tractors. None of them seem to have anything particularly nice or interesting. So as far as inspiration goes, there wasn't a lot to gain there. So I thought I would just see what tools I could get out on the lathe and see what I could come up with. At the end of the day, it's just another wee custom thing to add to the bike. And lathe work is something I really enjoy, so I thought I would just kind of show you how long it actually takes to make a part on the lathe, especially something that's just a little bit more freestyle. Yeah, just thought it might be a wee break from the normal. Yeah, let's start off by talking a little bit about the lathe I've got, and I'll give you a quick rundown of what it is and what we can do with it. So this is my 1946 Myford 3.5 inch M-type lathe. I did do a video specifically on this lathe when I got it. I'll link that up in the corner for you. But effectively this is an old piece of British engineering that will hopefully outlast me and last another, few decades. It's a basic lathe. I've got a 3-jaw chuck in it. I do have a 4-jaw chuck somewhere for it, but I've never really used it. I've got this, a very basic tool holder. I use sort of Chinese carbide insert tooling, which I've found to be pretty good value, and it means you don't have to try and grind tools. You just switch out the carbide tip when you inevitably chip it or dull it or whatever. Tailstock, again, nothing interesting about that. It's obviously not the biggest bed in the world, but for the kind of stuff I do, it's probably ideal. As far as gear cutting goes, it can cut gears, threads I should say, not gears. It can cut threads using the gears, that's why I'm thinking about gears, in the gearbox. So these lathes come with a big box of different sized gears, just in that box down there. And if you follow the chart on the side of the lathe, here, your eyes are better than mine, you can actually figure out what gears in which setup will cut what thread. I have yet to actually attempt that, and most of my thread cutting is just done with taps and dies. I'll be doing that today as well. I've got a little DTI on a little sort of magic boom arm here, which is useful for checking run out and things like that. And then a little modification I made to it is this little swarf guard that's just a piece of polycarbonate on again a little magic boom arm, which is an idea I stole from 46 Works. And yeah, it's quite useful for avoiding chips going straight into your face. Aside from that, not a lot more to say about it. Yeah, got a little airline there as well and a little chip tray, just for keeping on top of the inevitable piles of swarf that a lathe produces. So what we'll do first of all is get the chunk of aluminium here, get that chucked up, face it off, get a hole drilled in it and a thread cut, and then I'll probably use a piece of threaded bar in the threaded hole to hold it in the chuck to then make the rest of it. So yeah, let's get cracking with that. Alright, Lights, camera, action. So, one of the cardinal rules of using a lathe or any kind of, you know, high-speed spinning machinery is not to wear long sleeves. It's really cold in the shed today, so I'm going to take my chances. Do as I say, not as I do. Anyway, I'm going to get this chucked up. Here we go. I cut this bar stock just with my angle grinder. So this face is pretty rough. So it'll take a little bit to face this off. And I've popped a new blade in my cutter, my tool I should say, just to make me look good. So, that's our spinning. And then, just going to cross slide, start taking cuts. I've not even centered the tool, because I'm a rebel. Let's see how close I am. That's not far off. Let's come back the way. Walking a little bit. It's quite easy machining aluminium this, so I can take a bit more of a cut than I might with different types of metal. Steel in particular requires slightly gentler cuts. What I am going to do though is just put a little bit of cutting paste on my tip of my tool there. I find it extends the life of these cheap carbide tips quite substantially. Not centered to this tool. Okay, I think that's about faced off now. Let's have a look. Oh, still a little bit rough down here. So we'll apply a little bit more paste. Go again. I always find it bites a little bit as you get to the centre. Don't know if there's much you can do about that. Just the nature of cutting aluminium, I think. Maybe a slower speed on the lathe might help. One of the disadvantages of this lathe is that it's just 3 speeds, and they're just controlled by 3 different belt positions on different pulleys, so you don't get a lot of options for cutting speeds. There we go. So now I've got a nice uniform flush face there. We can spin the workpiece around like that. Do the same to this side. think that's pretty good. When you start getting big ribbons like that coming off, it generally means that you've got a consistent face. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, bang on. So now I've got two machined faces. Get this tool out of the way. And then we're going to get the tailstock into play. So first thing into the tailstock is this little center drill. The idea with the center drill is it doesn't deflect like a normal drill bit might. So you can start your hole bang on center and you'll find it won't deflect and wander off center. Once that hole started, you can then go with a normal drill. So I'm just gonna head into the workpiece with this. And I'm going to be drilling quite a big hole, so I'm just going to send this in most of the way. There we go. That's fine. I'm going to switch my center drill out now for a normal drill. See how we go on with this one. A little bit of cutting paste. There we go, no real issues there. I'm not really being hugely accurate with depths of my drilling here. I'm just going to be cutting a generous thread into it and make sure that there's just slightly less on the gear stick itself so that it bottoms out. It's probably enough. And what I'm going to do is just grab, I've got an offcut of the bar that I used to make it, the gear stick I should say. So I'm looking to drill, tap an M13 into that gear knob. So I'm probably gonna go with 11.5 pilot hole. I'm not sure if that's strictly correct. I should be able to cut a thread with an 11.5. Line that up, lock my tailstock, and there's the lathe. It's such a joy to machine aluminium. So much easier than steel. Look how easily that drill bit just sails into that. Big satisfying ribbons. I think that's it bottomed out now. Yep. Just withdraw that. Get rid of all that swarf. Alrighty. Next thing to do is to get a tap for this hole for my tap and die set. What did we see? M13. Funnily enough, I don't have an M13 tap. That throws a spanner in the works. Okay. That is a bit of an issue. What can I do with that? So 12 will only produce a 1/4 of a mil. Well, it's a bit of a problem. Didn't even think about that. I haven't got an M13 tap, which when you think about it makes a lot of sense, because M13 would be quite unusual. Not to worry, I'm going to get away with this because this isn't high tensile or high strength tap, it's literally just to hold a gear knob on. So I'm going to cut it with an M12 fine pitch. Obviously, annoyingly, I've just drilled that hole to 11.5, so it means the depth of the thread's only going to be, well, 1/2 mil, so a 1/4 mil on each side, which is not a lot. Not going to get a lot of strength out of that thread, but it will suffice for a gear stick. But yeah, in future, I will be checking my taps and dies before I jump the gun and start cutting. Anyway, so I don't have like a speed control that's sufficient. Like I said, I've only got 3 speeds, and the slowest one is not nearly slow enough to cut thread. So what I do, and this is a trick I learned from someone online, just to get the tap square or true into the hole, I'll start it on the lathe. So we spin the lathe, start to run the tap very slowly towards the hole, and then turn the lathe off, and at the same time run the tap. And just as the chuck comes to a stop, the tap will begin to cut some threads and just seat itself, you know, square and true into the hole. And then I can then remove both the workpiece and the tap from the lathe, stick it in my vise and cut the thread. So, just gonna send it in so it starts to cut, and I'm gonna turn the lathe off. There we go, job's done. So now that that is basically stuck into there, I just need to release it, draw the tailstock back, get the workpiece out of the lathe, take this over to the vise and cut that thread. So I'll tell you what, I'll pause the video here and come back in a couple of minutes when I've cut this thread. Alright, we have managed to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, and I've managed to cut a thread into the gear knob, which should be sufficient. Like I said, it's just a gear knob. But what I've done is I've threaded a piece of M12 by 175 bar into my gear knob, which I will use to hold it in the chuck. So, nice and tight, and just make sure that's screwed on nice and tight, which it is. So now when I spin it, yeah, nice and straight. So, first things first, I want to dress the edge here and just make it all uniform. Need a bit of cutting gear for that. There we go. So I'm just feeding the tool quite quickly, just to rough this out a little bit. And again, you shouldn't really take cuts on the backstroke, because I'm doing, not really taking cuts, because I'm just going so quickly and just taking off any material I missed on the initial cut, the initial pass. I don't know. It works, doesn't it? Can't argue with the results. I don't think it's strictly the right thing to do. Anyway, starting to get nice big ribbons now. Generally means I've probably cut enough off that I've got a uniform face. I'm just going to slow down a little bit and neaten that up. Quick look at that. Yeah, that's nice and uniform. Lovely. Okay, so designs wise, obviously this tool that I'm using is just it's just for taking, facing off and taking cuts off. Dimensioning, would you call it that? Anyway, what I do also have is a round-ended tool in here somewhere, hiding. Where is it? Up here? No. It's a boring bar. Where is it? Aha. Here it is. So, effectively the only difference is instead of having this sort of diamond shape cutter, this has a round cutter. So just feed that in there just now. I should really try and get a quick change tool post for this at some point, but that's a job for another day. So we'll need to pop a carbide insert into this, which is a sort of round one, and as you can tell, this is the first time I've ever used it, so no time like the present. So I think this should take some interesting cuts. So I'm just going to freestyle here and just see what looks nice. I'm not going to go crazy with measurements or anything. See what this does. Bit of chattering. Quite noisy, isn't it? Let's try it down here, see what it does. Could be that the tools are a little bit high. Or low, sorry. Raise it up a touch. That's arguably worse. Let's have a look at the cut it's making. Yeah, it's pretty uneven and chattery. Let's try that again. What I also might do is change from cutting paste to WD-40. WD-40 is apparently quite good for cutting aluminium. Don't know why. It just is. Seems to cut nicer in one direction than the other. So what I'm doing is gently feeding it in. Until I can't bear the chattering anymore. I'm just running it back and forward to just neaten the cut. This is fairly effective. Sounds horrible, doesn't it? Let's have a look at that. That's not very even at all. Should be able to neaten that up with just a bit of wet and dry. But yeah, it's pretty chattery. If you're unfamiliar with lathe terminology or machining terminology, chattering is just basically that noise that you're hearing, the high-pitched chattering, and it's effectively the tool sort of bouncing off the workpiece, and it creates a bit of an uneven finish. So that's not amazing. but it's not terrible. It's definitely salvageable, because we'll obviously, like I say, be polishing this up a little bit. That's probably passable. But yeah, I'm going to say that more practice is needed with this tool to make use of it. So for purposes of this video, I'm going to abandon ship and go back to, well, what I might do actually, I'm going to go for this straighter one. So the previous sort of diamond tip one was more of an angle, whereas this one is just a bit more straight in and out. Might be able to do some interesting cutting with this. Like I said, I'm just sort of freestyling this. See if we can come up with something. I highly recommend, if you don't have one and have the inclination, get yourself a lathe. They are really fun. Even just the ability to make things like this is endless amusement. Not only that, but the ability to just modify things and make spacers and small washers and stuff is just, yeah, completely, what's the word I'm looking for? Indispensable? I'm not sure. Struggling to get this bit out. It seems to have got stuck. There we go. So I'm just going to flip this round and get a good edge on it. I'm also going to make sure, one thing to note with these carbide inserts is to make sure that there's no swarf under the insert when you put it back in, because it'll make it sit unevenly and you'll probably get chattering. So there's that insert back in. A little bit of lubricant. Let's go again. One downside of using WD-40 is it just tends to throw WD-40 in my face. And if I was using my swath guard that I showed you earlier, that wouldn't be as much of a problem, but then you wouldn't be able to see what I'm doing. So let's just dimension this portion down a little bit. Imagine like most gear sticks are sort of wider at the top, aren't they? So let's bring this down maybe 5 mil or so. Oop, face full of swarf. That's what I'm talking about. Suffering for your entertainment. Should get my paintbrush to get rid of that. It's just sort of balled up at the end. Helpful? Oh, look at that big ribbon. Satisfaction guaranteed. That's going to wrap itself around and hit me in the face again, isn't it? Let's just stop just short of that. At least I got my safety glasses on. Slightly bigger cut this time. Make a wee bit more progress. I think I might leave it wider down here. I'm trying to imagine how your hand would sit on this. Right, I'm just going to get rid of that swarf before that causes me an issue. Don't need swarf thrown in my face. Let's do that again. Let's take another little cut, or a big cut I should say. This is quite fun, just totally free-form lathe work. Horrendous amounts of swarf. I'm gonna have to stop, that's gonna hit me in the face. Yup. Retreat! As Monty Python would say. Run away! Alright. How does that feel? It feels quite cool. Quite tactile. I don't want to go over the top just for the sake of this video, but I also, you know, want to have some kind of nice result. I think that feels quite good though, because imagine like a gear shifter sort of wider so that it fits in your palm and then your fingers kind of curl around it. And that's kind of doing that for me just now. I'm going to do another couple of cuts just to take a bit more meat out of here and slender that down a little bit. Okay. And all I'm doing is just adding a little bit of detail either side of the groove that we cut. A bit of chattering off of that again. Let's have a look-see. Yeah, it's looking pretty cool. I'm imagining trying to hold on to that. Fairly comfortable. So, next thing I'm going to do is, probably start working this with hand tools. Get a bit more kind of, even more freeform. I'm an artist. So, files on the lathe. This is really when long sleeves do become dangerous. Being anywhere near that chuck basically while it's spinning at that speed is just a little bit frightening. So you try and steer clear of it. It's good to have a guard like I've got over the top of the belts, especially on old lathes like this, for even fewer opportunities for injury. But I'm going to basically use, I've got a round file here. I'm going to use this just to start to kind of curve off some of the edges that are a little bit more uneven. Yeah, see where we get to. Doesn't take a lot of pressure. Obviously the lathe is doing the work really. It's feeling quite smooth. I'm trying to use as much of the length of the file as possible. Just get my tool post a bit more out of the way. Much of the length of the file as possible and just roll it over the edge as I go. Tends to create quite smooth radiuses. Radii. Radii, no. Aren't you glad I don't commentate all my videos? Okay. Where are we at? A bit of swarf hanging on there. Rid of that. Cool. Yeah, that's looking pretty good, I think. So, next up, just going to try and refocus the camera a little bit. That looks alright. Next up, I'm going to get some Abernet cloth. So that's this stuff. It's basically sanding cloth, abrasive cloth. Just get a pair of scissors and cut a strip of this off. Effectively, where are my blue and scissors gone? Over here. Effectively, the good thing about this stuff is that you can mold it round the part a little bit easier than, say, normal sandpaper. It does, however, wear out quite quickly. That's what I've found, but it is good stuff. So let's go for a little bit of lubrication. And see how we do. So just try to polish up the end a little bit and try and remove the marks from when we faced it off. I suppose I could have taken a slightly slower final cut just to give that a better finish, but I didn't. And we're here now. But that's feeling pretty smooth. Another thing with lathe work is that long sleeves and also gloves are a bit of a no-no, but I figure I get away with just little rubber gloves, because if these were to catch, they would be pretty swiftly removed from my hand without causing any damage. There's not a lot of strength to them. But I'm sure someone will tell me otherwise, and why I'm being dangerous. So this is what I was talking about with this stuff, is you can kind of fold it and manipulate it and get it into nooks and crannies, such as this groove that we cut. So I'm just going to try and neaten up some of that chatter marks that we were getting. See if I can manage that at all. If I can't, I could probably run a round file into that groove and make a bit of an improvement to it. We'll try this first. It does also clog up quite quickly, this stuff, especially with aluminium, just because obviously the aluminium dust that comes off is quite fine. It's feeling quite good. So if we look, yep, all the chatter marks are gone. Starting to smooth up nicely, so I'm going to smooth the waist of the part. One thing you should never do with sandpaper or cloth or anything like this is fold it over and hold it like that, because what happens is it can bite and then very quickly thumb be gone. So yeah, from either side like this, or underside, whatever you prefer, means that if it does bite, it would just rip out your hand without taking any digits with it. So that's starting to feel nice and smooth. Can't really tell in the video, but I can kind of feel when the part becomes sort of smooth just through the kind of vibrations through the cloth. And it's definitely doing its job. It's however gumming up quite badly. Wash it out with a bit of WD-40. No wonder my clothes end up disgusting. Apologies for the interruption there, my memory card ran out of space, so I've just popped a new one in it. Anyway, that's looking pretty good to me. No sharp edges. The only sharp edge really is this back edge here. So in a minute what I'll do is I'll pull it out the chuck slightly and round off that edge. Yeah, the last thing I can do really is just to round that off. But as far as that looks, what I'm probably going to move on to now is some Scotch-Brite. So get some Scotch-Brite on this, see if we can further improve that surface finish. Maybe try a slightly heavier grade first. Doesn't feel like that's doing much at all. It's a bit better. Start to see the surface finish improve there before your very eyes. It's looking pretty good now. Let's have a look. That's looking nice and shiny, isn't it? Let's go to the finer grade Scotch-Brite now. I suppose I'm not really looking for a mirror finish as such, but polished aluminium instead of like highly polished aluminium, I suppose that's what I'm looking for. Bearing in mind I've not used any polishing compounds or anything, I'm literally just using abrasives. I mean, a polishing compound is an abrasive, I suppose, but it's like an ultra fine abrasive. It's starting to get pretty shiny now. Cool. Let's look at that. Hey, that's not bad, is it? That's pretty shiny. I like that. Just having a good look at that. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Just a little bit of finessing required here, I think. That's better. Just had a couple of wee marks there I wanted to get rid of. Alright, I'm pretty chuffed with that. What I'm going to do now is, as I said, just going to pull it out of the chuck slightly. And then we're going to get the file and radius this corner, this edge. There you go. Can get a fresh piece of Abernet cloth. A good bit of progress on that, nice and quick. And my Scotch-Brites. Last one. I think that's us. Let me just get a quick cloth, give it a wipe, see what we're looking at. It's looking pretty good. Just gonna get one more quick go over. That's looking pretty good to me, I think. Yeah, nice. Okay, let's get it out. I might just run it over the polishing mop just slightly, and then I'll give you a closer look at it, and we'll get it on the bike. And here's the finished thing. So, you know, like I said, not highly polished, but polished. Still has just very vague concentric rings on it just by nature of the way I've made it, obviously. If I spent some time in the polishing mop, I could get rid of them, but I actually quite like it. Like I say, very vague, but feels quite nice in the hands. It's nice and smooth. So I've cut a corresponding thread onto the gear shifter. So let's get it threaded onto the bike and have a look at it. How's that? That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm chuffed with that. Well, I hope you will agree that that's a decent result. It's just a little bit of kind of chopper bling to this bobber. Again, I'm kind of just freestyling this build. I've not, like I said, I've got a sort of tractor theme in mind, but just fabricating things as I go along. And I just thought a sort of real-time lathe video would be quite interesting. Like I said, it's not something I've done before, so hopefully you enjoyed that, and you know, maybe you muted it, stop listening to my constant chattering on. But anyway, next jobs with this bike. The glaring one is a fuel tank. I'm probably going to tackle that in the new year, just because it's getting towards the end of the year and I'm not really in presence of mind or have the energy to really jump into that part of the project yet. But there's not really that many more fabrication jobs to do other than just little bits and pieces, so we'll see what I come up with and see if I can get some more content out to you guys in the not too distant future. But it is, you know, the middle of December now, and we're moving on towards the kind of Christmas stand down period where everything grinds to a halt. But yeah, I'm really chuffed with the progress I've made with this bike so far in the kind of short period of time that I've had it. Like I said, I want to get this ready for next year, hopefully for that Scottish custom show, the new show that hopefully will be coming towards the end of summer, autumn next year. Yeah, I want to just, you know, take my time with some aspects, especially the tank. I'm not going to rush anything. I've got some interesting ideas, so yeah, we'll see if I come back from a bit of a Christmas break a bit more revitalised and ready to do some more fabrication and bike building. But yeah, I just wanted to show off what fun you can have on a lathe. Hopefully, if you've been very good this year, maybe Santa's sack will be extra heavy and there might be a lathe in there for you. But yeah, if you've not got a lathe and you fancy, you know, you like this kind of thing, like tinkering, definitely clear a corner in your garage or your workshop and get yourself something, because you can make parts like this. Like I said, you can also just modify other bits and pieces, and just a completely, you know, invaluable tool really for me. And yeah, my production quality has definitely gone up massively since I got that a couple of years ago now. Anyway, as usual, please do give me a like, leave me a comment, and make sure you subscribe to the Shoogly Shed channel. It's been really nice to see the channel just building over the last couple of months as we head towards the end of the year. It's good to end on that high. So yeah, thank you to everyone that supports me, and thank you to all the new subscribers especially. And make sure you you know, share this content with your pals and anyone that might be interested, because you know, the more sharing, the more organic views go on, the benefit it has to the channel. So yeah, again, I really do appreciate all that support. Have a great Christmas, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.